go get it and leave us a review on launch day.
Oh, yeah, please leave us a review.
For the love of God.
Oh, yeah, a good one.
A good one.
Would be the ideal.
Often people say, I don't care if you leave a bad review or a good review, just leave a review.
I care.
Butterscotch.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 200 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam and I'm the webs programmer.
I'm Sam and I'm the artiste.
And this is a show where we talk about life, business, and working in the games industry. Today is April 18th, 2019. Before we get started, we have a warning. Anything could happen on this show. There may be profanities and bad stuff.
Mostly profanity.
Actually,
really no bad stuff.
No bad stuff,
Only-
but things that children maybe shouldn't be, they don't need to know about.
According to some people.
Yeah. So why are we doing this episode one day after the most recent episode?
Because Levelhead is now available in early access on Steam.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's right.
That's correct.
That's
yeah.
right.
It's launched.
Sam was
today.
actually just guessing because we just told him to come in here and do a podcast episode.
Yeah,
He had
he's
no
like,
idea
happening?
why.
He's been real blindsided by this since he's our marketer.
Yeah.
I
So-
got some
no
work to
idea.
do, actually. I got to go.
Yeah, we pulled a good prank on him. We
Yep.
we just
Very
launched
funny.
the game today. So
for those of you in the community Discord who have predicted that it was April 18th, nice one.
Are correct.
Nice
Yes.
one. Good work.
So there's that fine line you got to walk. We did a soft Beyonce launch of this.
Mhm.
We didn't want to launch it too early in the month, because then we have less time to work on the game, right?
Yep.
And if we say it's coming out in April, then of course the longer April goes on, the more likely it is that any given day.
Mhm.
Because if you wait until April 29th, and people are like, well, I mean, it's 50-50 at this
Obviously,
point, right?
Yeah. Exactly the middle has the most uncertainty.
That's what
Yeah.
we wanted. We'll keep you on your toes.
Because it could just a coin toss at that point.
Yeah.
Was it today? I don't know. Actually, it's not a coin. It's like a 15-sided coin. That's like a D&D thing, right? They got those 15-sided coins.
Those coins.
Yeah. So we're doing early
Roll your
access.
15-sided coins around.
You roll them.
Yeah.
You roll them, and then they land on one side.
So instead of
You know how
so
coins
it's
work.
not a D15, it's a C15 for coin
C15.
15.
You roll it, whichever side it lands on,
Uh-huh.
you're good.
Yep, definitely.
That's how you know. So let's talk about early access. How long are we doing it? Why are we doing it? What's happening with
the
this?
deal? Yeah, so we decided to do early access actually back in November of last year. And the reason was that we wanted to start building a community around Levelhead. And the big sort of thing you have to do is people have to have something to do as a community, right? So you can't just have them get excited about the game, though that has been working to some degree. Really, we wanted to be able to put the game into the hands of players so that they could start experiencing it and then shaping it with us. Because Levelhead is a game all about sharing levels. It's all about building stuff and competing with your friends. And so it didn't really make any sense for us to try to essentially optimize everything about it on a community level before the community got to interact with it.
Yeah.
So early access is all about getting it into the hands of players and then reshaping and adding new content to the game based on player feedback.
Yeah.
We, of course, have our own designs and our own dreams about what we're going to do with it. But really, it's about finding those surprising things that we didn't even know and honing all the systems such that the thing just works really well for people coming in, building stuff, sharing it with friends, and feeling the sort of thrill that we get as designers for, seeing your numbers rack up as people play your levels and that sort of thing. So we're super excited
Seeing
about
them
it.
hopefully rack up.
Hopefully rack up.
Yeah.
If you get enough exposure backs. Yeah, we're so excited. And we plan on being in early access for anywhere from, 6, 12 months. I don't know.
6 to 12 months or years.
Yeah. It's hard to
Or
say.
just the rest of our lives.
Hard to say. The big 1.0 is really sort of a secret, mainly because we're not entirely certain exactly.
It's not
what
only
it's gonna
secret, but it's also a state of mind.
be. It is.
It's not real.
It is. And so Levelhead is already super polished. And I know some people will be asking, why is it in early access? Because that happens to games that are very polished when they're there. We want to do, it's all the extra stuff about the game that's not what's currently available, essentially. And so
Yeah, we made sure the stuff that's in there is polished.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have all the stuff in there that we want to have in there.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
so
that's
we'll
what
keep adding stuff to the game, and then at some point we'll be like, it's done, and then we'll be like, just kidding, but it's launched now, and then we'll keep working on it.
Yep.
You know, for a while.
Because that's how games work.
Yep. And then we'll launch into late access, which is
Yeah.
where you just missed the whole thing. The game is dead now. It's
Yep.
been 10 years.
Yep.
Nobody even remembers it.
Mm-hmm.
So like feeding tubes. the
Yeah,
whole
and that's
thing.
going to be kind of like our third phase
Uh-huh.
of the game.
Yeah.
Is I think Diablo 2 is doing that now. They're launching into late access.
Mhm.
And so we really want to kind of
That's
like
true.
we want to kind of capitalize on that new hip new trend.
It's that demographic who just was not paying attention for years, and then you gotta
for a lot of
get 'em.
years.
Yeah, it's really hard to get them though.
Yeah.
Turns out.
And then of course, after 10 years, what you want to really do with that is like make sure the game is exactly as it was. Don't update anything.
Don't
keep
change a
it.
thing.
Don't change a thing. Keep the graphics the same. Everything. Because what you really want to do is capitalize on like the community growth that comes from people complaining about how the game looks now that it's been out for 20
Yes.
years. You know,
Now,
because
does it live up to the nostalgia.
yeah, a lot of people will really kind of like bond around that aspect.
Yeah, and
of
if you
it.
wait long enough, you can then have the grave access, which is when the game.
It's not even playable anymore.
Well, it's not even that it's not playable. It's that there's nobody alive who remembers that.
Nobody
game
even.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is kind of how I feel like. I think that's kind of where we are with the Atari games. You know.
Yep. Yeah, it's true.
Where
I'm waiting.
every once in a while I see one of those again, and I'm like, oh yeah, when I was like a young kid, that was already
It was already on
that
its
was
way
already
out.
on its way out.
Yeah.
And
It's long
yeah,
gone.
It's long gone.
Long
So
gone.
hopefully your game just continues being played in people's memories for some time. And then it's
So
gone
just
forever.
to recap, we're early access now. We'll be launching into full access at some point. Then we'll hit a late access launch within a 10 to 20 year kind of window. After that, and then
grave access after about 30 years.
yeah, which is where it's dead
gone
now.
now.
Yeah, it has been burned from cultural memory of mankind.
And we will make a futile attempt to try to resurrect it, probably with our own console.
yeah.
I think that's how you do it.
Yep.
Yeah, we can call it like the oh yeah or something like that.
that'd be
Nobody's done that before.
No.
Nope.
So real quick, what even is this podcast? Because I feel like we're gonna have a lot of new players coming in today.
So first,
And
welcome.
we kind of
welcome new listeners.
We kind of just barreled into this thing.
As we do.
So let's talk about that. This is episode 200. So clearly we've been doing this for a little bit.
We're no spring chickens when it comes to podcasting.
Yeah.
Is a spring chicken? How's that different from like a regular
I think it's
other
just
chicken?
it's just a chicken born in the springtime, so it's very fresh.
I see.
You know what I mean? It's a fresh chicken.
yeah.
Assuming it is spring.
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking about spring chicken, but it's fall, then that's an
It's
old,
like
that's
an
an
old
old
one
chicken.
now.
That's like
Yeah.
a
That's an
temporal
elder
warp
chicken.
Or maybe is
I
it
think.
just in springtime chickens behave as if they are young? Because
Probably.
so
Oh yeah,
pumped
that's
about
where they
being
come
outside.
out. That's like the videos of the cows that get let out after a long winter, stuck inside,
fuck
and they just
yeah.
like they just start prancing around.
That's what I do as well.
Yeah. So this podcast, back to the point,
Yeah.
is it's a 1 hour chat every single week where we sit down and we talk about what's going on in the studio, what's going on with the games, and also the industry at large, and then we take fan and player questions. So the purpose of it is really just to, one, keep us sane, because game development's really hard, also can be very stressful, and taking an hour every week for us to just kind of sit around, the three brothers, co-founders of the studio, and just sort of shoot the breeze really takes the edge off, which is nice. And then beyond that, it's about, just hanging out with the players, because we like to actually have some closeness, unlike the large studios.
And it's a lot more personal than a blog post. Like if we want to do a development blog and talk about things, you gotta, not very many people read those for starters.
Yeah.
Also, it's just not as fun or interesting for us to do because we like somebody would sit down and write it. You got to proofread the thing, and we got to put pictures in this blog post. Blah blah blah.
You don't have to edit your speech,
You
retroactively.
just say stuff
yeah.
badly.
You
and
can have
people are
terrible
like,
grammar, run on sentences.
Mm-hmm.
You can not end your sentences with, things that make sense.
you can interrupt each other as much as you want.
It's all fine.
Apparently, that doesn't matter because that's basically all we do, and
Mm-hmm.
then people still listen. So we got a lot of leeway here.
yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, and so we've been doing this podcast now for over 4 years.
Has it been 4 years? Is that
200 episodes.
shit?
Or I guess
50
not
a year.
over 4 years, but just
Under
around
approaching.
4 years.
22,
208 would be, right?
52 to 53 weeks.
52.
There's
some
52
math.
weeks, but there's
Here's the thing. It doesn't
gets
matter. It's
weird.
very close to 4
It's
years.
close to 4 years.
all right.
And we
Thank you, Adam.
started the podcast while we were developing Crashlands,
Mm-hmm.
which is our most recently launched game. And I think at the time we started it
And by most recently launched, we mean
3 years
3
ago.
years ago, which is also 150 episodes
That's
ago.
why I'm so excited to get this damn game out, because we haven't launched something new
In a while.
in
It's been a
3
minute.
years.
And we've only been working on Levelhead for 15 months or something like that.
Last January.
So
So
you might
60
be
episodes.
asking like, what happened in the intervening couple of years? Lots of stuff.
You can listen
go
to
back
our
and listen to the archives if you're really interested. But I mean, a lot of it was our first Crashlands was our first kind of like game that got a lot of traction, and for us, it was a lot of learning how to navigate that whole experience. We did work on the game for another year and do lots of work on it and stuff. So. So that's what this podcast is. And hopefully, if you get into Levelhead and any new folks, stick around. Maybe give us a weekly listen, and then you'll kind of be able to stay in touch with what's happening in the game, in the studio, with the community.
And it does pair nicely with early access too, because if you're into the early access experience of just being right in there with development,
bleeding edge,
on the bleeding edge, knowing exactly what's coming and being able to opine on the things that have already happened or whatever, this is a nice way to do that. Because every week we'll just talk about our side of that same sort of coin as early access goes on.
And also the podcast helps us to be people, because we know that like a lot of players view game studios as like these faceless giant monsters that are sort of sneaking into your room and stealing your wallet.
Although this is just audio, so people do not see our faces.
We may be a monster,
a three-mouthed demon.
Yes,
but I think I think it helps us, and it helps our players to know that as far as like the gameplay programming, that's me. All of it. That's me, Seth. And then all the web stuff is Adam.
That's just all mine.
And all the pictures and art that you see is Sam.
Yep.
Which on the one hand means that's the person you blame.
Right.
But on the hand that I hope you take instead, it's just that one person just doing all that hard work for you.
Yeah.
Doing their best.
And kind of recognizing that, you may see something in the game that you would like to see improved and all that stuff. And it helps to recognize that if you've got just a couple of people working on the game, then we have a very deep well of tasks that we are currently working through. And we may not always get to the thing immediately or ever. Yep. Probably ever. But it's just kind of a good way for us to make ourselves known to the community of kind of like what our deal is. So let's talk about Levelhead, like the development and kind of how it's gone so far, and then kind of where we see it going. So we started it in January of last year.
Yeah.
What was the inspiration?
It was started as almost like a palate cleanser, because we had just basically killed a project called Scuffle Buddies, which our listeners
we were 6 months deep in that morass.
Yeah. And we made a few design twists and turns that had made it very difficult to climb out of that morass. And so we burned it down, which is one of our
I think morass is kind of fun because it also just sounds like more ass.
It's very good. It's
just too much.
Just too much ass.
So we escaped from the gravity of that butt and managed to start fresh with Levelhead. And the idea was we wanted to build a game that people could build stuff in. That was kind of the extent of it. And then we looked around and we saw that there was this what appeared to be a nice hole in the market where there wasn't something like this on PC in particular or on consoles. And certainly not in the mobile space, aside from the old Mario Maker on Wii U. Mm-hmm. And so we decided, okay, let's take a crack at this and see if we can do it. We've never made platformers before.
How hard could it be? How hard could it be?
That's how most of our projects start, and then we learn how hard it is.
Pretty
and
hard.
We say, would we have done this if we knew how hard it was?
Yep.
And the answer is always no, but also I'm glad we did it.
Yeah. It's also our first UGC, user-generated content game, because we want players to be able to not only make stuff, but then share the stuff that they have made with one another. So they can go through the joys and the triumphs and the tragedies of making things and giving it to other people to
watch them just destroy it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now you get to have that feeling too. We get all
You're
the time.
welcome.
You're welcome. So we basically prototyped the game over 11 weeks or so, and we took it to this conference called GDC, Game Developer Conference out in San Francisco, and showed it to some people being the platforms of the world, like Steam and Apple and Google. And
we actually we went over to a laptop that had Steam open on it, and we just
held the game.
We just
up
held
to
the
it.
game up to it. And we're like, can
the
you guys see
laptop
this?
nodded and said,
"Yep."
Mm-hmm.
And
Sagely.
the response we got back from those platforms was very excited, and much more so than they were even for our previous game, Crashlands, when we showed them that. And so we came back from that trip and we said both yes, but also oh shit, because we didn't realize what we had built. And so we sort of stepped back and we said, okay, do we want to actually take this thing all the way?
Because we thought we were going to wrap that thing up basically like last May or whatever.
Yeah. And it was going to be sort of like a quiet little workable thing. And so what has proceeded then from that moment was we said, okay, let's do this for real, and just started building as fast as we could. And last September, we were announced by Nintendo coming to the Switch back at PAX. and got to go out to Nintendo HQ, which is super cool. And then and
we met Reggie, who now is not there anymore.
Yeah.
So,
that
was a one-time deal.
He came in the room and everyone just got quiet.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
He had an awesome pin on that had the
Smash
the
Bros.
Smash
Brothers logo. Yeah. Which was
It's kind of like how, President of the United States has always gets shit for not wearing an American flag pin. He had a Smash Bros.
Yeah. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Great. So we've gotten to do a couple of cool things because of Levelhead already. And now we finally get to get it in people's hands. So the journey on the backside of that has been, we've also overhauled our studio to do what's called DevOps, which is like a sort of a fancy, cool way of doing production and makes your lives way easier. And hopefully this launch much smoother for us so that everything's not on fire. We can kind of enjoy it this weekend.
We will find out tomorrow because we're recording the podcast the day before you guys listen to it.
We'll find out today.
We'll find out today.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. And I think the other consideration for Levelhead is when we launched Crashlands, but now over 3 years ago, we were watching the activity of like the community and stuff around the game. And although the game got a really good response and everybody who played it was super into it, the game ends. Like it has whatever we put in it, and there's no good way for players to then take the game and sort of like turn it into their own thing. And so the community around the game really kind of like exploded in the first month and then just rapidly, kind of.
But also, it's just not that much of a community in the sense that it's all people who like the same thing, but it's not people who like work with each other on the same thing and really like collaborate in interesting ways.
And you could tell your friend about Crashlands, and maybe like share with them a tip or something like that. But that's kind of it.
Yeah.
And so
there's no way to really share the experience.
Yeah. And so with Levelhead, we thought, we wanted to make something that has the not just the tendency to form a community around it, but that just will form a community around it. And so we even saw that during the alpha of Levelhead. We had 150 people come into the alpha, and people were just like, it was crazy. People were making all kinds of ridiculous levels, building weird machines and like sharing them with each other, and then like trash talking each other over like taking each other's top times and stuff. It was very polite trash talk, as it should be.
Our community's very nice.
Yeah. But all of a sudden we had this thing that was completely like a 180 in terms of community engagement. So we're super excited about that. So then kind of going forward in early access, what's our approach to this thing? Like, what do we think we want to see coming out of it? Like, where are we going?
Yeah. So, our immediate plan is just to get clear of launch. And what that means is this weekend, basically starting today through Sunday, is sort of like, it's just like dealing with Armageddon on our side of things.
It's learning where all the holes are.
Because you think you got weaknesses, and then you put like thousands of people onto your systems, and then you know where your weaknesses are. So that's what we're going to be really paying attention to for these next couple of days, is finding those systemic weaknesses in either in the product or in the studio itself, as far as how we handle stuff.
Yeah. And the more it's one of those kind of weird things that the more successful it is, the more it's going to hurt during this weekend.
So one thing we know is that, for example, like Netflix, they have this thing called the Chaos Monkey.
Yeah.
It's basically a robot that they built that just will randomly attack their own servers and randomly destroy things or like delete things and whatever. The idea being there should be enough redundancies and fail safes built into every system that they have that any attack or hack or failure of any kind, any outage, power outage, internet outage, whatever, should have no effect on people's ability to watch movies, right? And so they just have this Chaos Monkey just running around in their production database, just killing stuff.
Now it turns out that humans are actually just Chaos Monkeys.
They're the best Chaos Monkeys.
People are
of all.
Chaos Monkeys.
And so we're jumping all the Chaos Monkeys onto the game right now.
Yeah.
So
a barrel
and
of
unfortunately, we don't
Chaos
have our own. We don't have our own robot Chaos Monkey, and so there will I'll just apologize in advance because there will be some stuff that's going to happen.
Oh yeah,
and we don't know. We'll fix it, but we don't know what it's going to be.
So the first couple of days is going to be that, rapid bug fixes, that sort of thing. Probably the week following will be in a slightly similar vein, which is we'll be focusing mainly on making sure our processes are good, such that we can build stuff, really rapidly and reliably as we go into the future. And then beyond that, it's just going to be adding cool stuff to the game. So we do have sort of our own internal vision for what's going to be happening, but we don't find any value in actually talking about that because probably it'll change. We change our mind literally constantly. If you listen to any of the episodes of the podcast or talk to the community about it, you'll know that very quickly that we're very adaptive in terms of how we work. And so having a declared roadmap doesn't quite make as much sense as just saying like, we're going to put a lot of awesome stuff in the game and you'll just start seeing it.
Yeah, we'll always just focus on exactly the next thing, because the assumption is that by the time we get that next thing done, the world has changed around us. We have changed, and now the next thing we've grown as people or shrunk, and so then the next thing is just going to be something else. You know?
Yeah. So we don't plan things, and we'll get there when we get there. But if you want to keep an eye on the community and kind of like stay more, keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening, here's how you do it. One, this podcast will just be every week. We'll be talking about what's going on. And we also take questions from listeners through the podcast over at podcast.bscotch.net, and we'll be doing that a little bit later in this episode as well.
And you should definitely subscribe, because that's the best way to know when new episodes come out.
Yes. So do that. And then we also have a Discord, which is at discord.gg/bscotch, and we're in there. We are not going to be able to respond to everything that happens in there, and actually we're definitely not going to even try to.
And before we even list all the links, you should also just know that if you just go to bscotch.net, our main website, you will find every link that we're talking about.
Yeah. So just go to bscotch.net. So we're just giving a quick breakdown of what we've got available to you. And then we also have our patch notes, which you can, if you just follow the link to the Levelhead games page on our website, the patch notes are right there. And we will be deploying patches, and those things will be coming out all the time, so you can kind of see how the game is changing over time. And then
you'll also actually see what's coming next, because the patch notes show you the most recent release, but also the stuff that's only happened internally, that only our internal testers have seen.
Yes.
You'll see the list of all the things.
So you'll know what's coming, which is pretty cool. Because it may be the case that we might develop 2 or 3 smaller patches and then bundle them together and then deploy them out. So you'll kind of see little things happening in the meantime, which is super cool. And then also, as you make a Rumpus account, you'll be in our newsletter, so you'll get some updates about stuff like that. So did I hit it all? I think.
Yeah.
We also have a Levelhead subreddit, which is just reddit.com/r/Levelhead. Yeah. So lots of different places.
There's the Steam forums, which we assume.
That's where it always is. Yeah. So there's a lot of different things, and we're going to be doing our best to be developing community tools to make sure that people are able to participate and give us feedback about the game and know what's coming and all that stuff. So that's kind of where things are at for Levelhead. You guys have any final things to add before we hit some?
Go get it and leave us a review on launch day.
Please leave us a review.
For the love of God.
Oh yeah, a good one.
A good one
would be the ideal.
Often people say, I don't care if you leave a bad review or a good review, just leave a review.
I care.
No. If you're gonna leave a bad review, please just don't.
Don't.
You know? This is our livelihood.
Don't you know that saying? If you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say anything.
Shut it. Walk away.
But the more important point is, this is early access, and we are actively soliciting your feedback so that we can use it in the game. You don't have to try to sabotage the success of our game to do it. You can just go to any of those thousands of things that Seth told you about.
Well, and notably, what's the consequence of a review? It's that it informs future buyers, right? So if you think the game is in a bad enough state that other people shouldn't even get it,
then of course,
then yes, go ahead.
Yep.
We're pretty confident that that's not the case. Yeah. But we have all these little buttons inside the game where you can send us direct feedback about different aspects of the game. And so if you have things that you'd like to see changed, use that. Because that goes into our system, and then we can turn it into tickets.
Yeah, tell us about it so that we can fix it. Don't go tell future potential buyers about it.
If you've been enjoying this podcast for the last 200 episodes, I'm going to call in a favor.
This free podcast,
and just go get the game and give us a thumbs up, play a little bit, see what it's like, and that's part of what the podcast is for us, is to stay in touch with people for as long as possible, and then now
fair warning.
Help our own games out.
The game is hard.
It's challenging. That's the word I was told to use by the PR team. It's a challenging game.
Wait, don't worry. We'll edit. We'll change that.
Can it be difficult? Which of those three are you?
Challenging is the best.
Is difficult second best?
Yeah, difficult's kind of like hard.
So we don't want to use excruciating. That's probably not one of them.
Hopefully not that.
Okay,
that one.
It's like getting a root canal. It's just really, really terrible. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we don't want to use that.
Stay away from that. Okay. This is why you don't do the interviews.
Yeah. Got it.
This game is just excruciating.
This game, you're going to be actually. Many of our alpha testers did report they played the game so much that their hands were in physical pain.
Yeah, that might actually happen. So
the game might be excruciating.
No, but here's the thing, though. That's just the consequence of exercise.
That's true.
So really, the game was so good that they exercised when they didn't want to, which is saying something.
I think this is kind of like how like you got to tape up your nipples when you run a marathon because like they were like my thumbs are like raw and calloused.
We were playing N64 and you get the dent.
Yeah,
you get the dent in your thumb from using that joystick.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're gonna get some thumb dents.
Yeah,
from this. We actually have several people in our Levelhead Early Access strike team, which is like a few folks who are kind of helping us shore up some things, testing. And they're just playing for fun, and they're racking up several hundred hours, and it's not even come out yet, and they've only had access for a few weeks.
Yeah. The game's got some legs.
So just
actually on this note, when we talk about how challenging this game is, do we have any pro tips for people before we roll into questions? We're just like, as you're playing this game, so one pro tip, supposedly, I still don't believe it yet, is that the mouse is a great control scheme.
It is.
Yeah. So
mouse
you
and keyboard.
WASD and then your mouse.
Yeah, but just clicking the mouse, not like moving the mouse, but just the clicky parts.
It definitely is a little weird when you start, but then like
because you want to move it. You want to move it to make it do something.
But it doesn't control anything by moving.
It's just the
clicking. But it feels great actually once you get the rhythm on there.
Yeah, I think it's because the key press on a mouse click is very light and easy, right? So if you're like normally it's either use a controller, which is fine, and then you got your big dumb thumbs. And like your thumbs are the dumbest fingers you've got, maybe except for pinkies. Pinkies are pretty stupid.
Pinkies are the dumbest. Pinkies are definitely the dumbest.
Well, I guess ring finger.
Look how stupid this thing
is. I guess
I'm looking at it right now.
It's wiggling around.
But also there's a whole thing with like your ring and your pinky finger can't move just by themselves.
Right. Right. So ring and pinky finger tie for dumbest.
Garbage. Yeah.
But your thumb is actually not that great either, because it's big, it's fat, you've only got one of them.
I think it's really that when you're looking at a keyboard, the thumb going down is actually it going sideways. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're moving your thumb sideways.
Because the thumb is oriented different. It's an opposable thumb.
Yeah, thumbs are meant to oppose.
Exactly.
Not
so
go laterally.
When you're slapping a keyboard, for example,
it's a
with
literal
your thumb,
slap.
it's actually you're moving your thumb.
So like one thing that really bothers me about controllers is that for some reason we've all decided that your thumbs are the things that you're going to use to control the game, as opposed to having something that you hold and then has like 4 buttons on the back of it, that you could use your fingers for, because then that would be fucking awesome.
Yeah, but then you can't see them, and that freaks people out.
Well, that's why you put an elaborate set of mirrors kind of wrapping around.
We could do this for our console.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We had a new controller. You can't see the buttons unless you use a mirror.
We had the courage to put the buttons on the back.
So what we'll do to solve that is the console itself will be
it'll be a mirror.
It'll be a very small cube, but it'll be covered in mirrors. That way you can see the back of the controller.
Perfect.
Boom, problem solved.
Boom.
Yeah. So.
The pro tip is basically try mouse and keyboard. Supposedly, if you just let yourself
let yourself be in it,
then it's good.
Any
other pro tips? Learn the package jump mechanic. Really just practice it.
Well, if you play there's a challenge level that is optional from which you can unlock signs and arrows in the campaign. That's called the package jump test or package jump challenge. And this level is one of those levels that if you play it, it will sort of lock into your muscle memory exactly how to do basically the sort of almost the quintessential move of Levelhead, which is using the package as a stool and then jumping off of it and picking it up with you as you go somewhere. What this allows you to do is jump on spikes because you can bring the package with you and put it underneath you before you hit them and then just jump off it again.
Another tip is just have fun with it. Just let it.
We want to talk about this as far as creation goes, because a lot of people, what we saw from the alpha is that about a fifth of people actually ever build levels in a game like this.
Or ever published levels. I think they probably tinkered with the workshop a little bit.
And so
just put too much pressure on yourselves.
Yeah, it's fine to make real terrible stuff. I mean, all of us, we literally made platformer for the first time with Levelhead. And so the first levels we were making, absolute garbage.
We actually made an entire campaign.
We did.
In the first 4 months of the game, which we deleted all of it.
Yeah.
Because it was real bad.
Well, I think we've made 3 now. This is the third one.
We made 3 whole campaigns.
Yeah. And then I also, during the alpha, deleted the first 7 levels and replaced them with 1. Yep. So that sort of iteration, like just learning and stuff, just really just have fun putting stuff together and make something that you're even vaguely proud of and then publish it. Because it's just kind of fun to get out there and actually do some stuff. And don't be so hard on yourself, I guess. Yeah. This isn't school. You're just here to have fun.
Well, and I think a lot of those, if you're first learning how to build levels early on, it's all about that. It's all about putting constraints on yourself.
Yes.
Because you might think I need to just keep playing through the campaign and unlock more and more and more stuff.
My problem with my levels is I don't have enough things.
Yeah.
You know,
And,
Yeah.
and
It's not the problem.
usually the worst levels are the ones that have the most things.
Yeah.
You know, you want to focus on a really interesting mechanic and then just like build something simple that kind of just exploits it.
It takes
Give
a
the
lot.
player time to breathe.
Yeah, it takes a lot of design power to be able to merge even like 10 elements in the game together well. So
Yeah.
if you start off the game, you'll have just like spikes and vac rats, which are the first enemy you come in contact with. Fantastic way to build a level out of.
Yep.
Actually, this would be an interesting study we can do because we do know how many unique elements are in each level. That's something that we can track on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have an algorithm that determines how engaged people are with the level. You know, it's like average playtime
on that.
Yeah, we could do a correlation and be like, because I assume it's sort of like just a decreasing curve. Like,
Yeah, the more stuff is in there, the
if
less
you've
people
got like
it.
90 unique things in your level, there's just so many things happening that the player's like, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't.
And this is
do
what we did actually. So the final level in the campaign has everything in it. I think there might be one thing missing of the like 70 items that you've seen that far.
This hard.
It's hard, and it took a very long time.
But it took a long time and a lot of iterations to get it to a point where it wasn't like overwhelming.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not easy to do that. So just like, you know, just trim it down and you're good. All right, let's hit some questions.
Let's do it.
These questions come from podcast.bscotch.net. And also if you ask questions there, you can see other questions and vote them up. So that you can, even if you don't want to ask something, you can kind of influence what's going to come in future episodes. All right. So first question comes from lekiy, who says, what are your thoughts on difficulty options in games? Is it preferred to give the player options to tailor their own experiences or to have one difficulty that is well tuned by the devs? All right.
Yeah. Let's unpack
One
this.
difficulty cannot be well tuned.
There it is. Not possible.
It's going to be well tuned for
A
some
subset of users.
people.
Mhm.
We've even talked in the past. We used to give a lot of talks and stuff in like our local game dev community about things like marketing and game balance. And you would even have a scenario, and we've ran into this with Levelhead, that because the game was kind of cartoony looking and colorful, then we discovered that many people signed up for the alpha thinking that it was going to be like a very casual game.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out to kick the crap out of them. And it was not well tuned for them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's all about like, is the game delivering what the player expects and what the player wants to
And
get?
then how do you message that appropriately? So actually all of our trailers now, which is the new one also launched today, they aim much more towards showing that it feels a little bit more intense than the previous trailers where it was just kind of chatting and making jokes. And so there's a big part of that, but there's, if your game has room for being able to apply multiple difficulty levels, so generally you're going to see that in RPGs and stuff like that, then you absolutely should. Because as I said, you're actually thinking that you're making a difficulty that is the best difficulty for the game. It's for a particular demographic of people. And so if you have the ability to do it, then you probably should. We did this with Crashlands where you could pick up front what difficulty to go into. The main problem with that one was that people would go in thinking that the normal balance that we chose was going to be easy. And so
they would turn it up to
they'd
max.
be like, I'm going to put it on ludicrous mode because I know what I'm doing. And then they get into it, and we didn't actually give people the option to change difficulty midstream, which some games do. I think Witcher.
We just took a stance on that and we just said,
Live in your truth.
yeah,
live your truth. And then
we're giving you
actually
what
got
you wanted.
Tons of complaints from people. We probably shouldn't have done that, to be honest, because it would have been no
I
skin
still
off,
stand by it.
but no skin off our backs. And as far as making it possible for people to swap the difficulty dynamically. And so the interesting things with a game like Levelhead, platformers are one of those game types, almost like anything that's really skill based and where the level designs can't really meaningfully flex in any way because of how the game itself works, have more of almost like a static difficulty level to them, right? So we can make levels in Levelhead that are that feel easier, but basically the rate of challenge and sort of the way the game works means that there's just a certain difficulty associated with stuff, and we've had to pick one for the campaign in particular.
Yeah, because if you wanted difficulty levels or tiers or something, then your options would be like maybe slow the game down because then people can react to stuff better. Or you'd actually have multiple variations of the same level.
Right.
Which actually some of our alpha testers built this concept where at the beginning of the level, you would hit a switch and then that would like display a number, which is the difficulty level. And then depending on what you hit, it would spawn like spikes and enemies into the level that otherwise wouldn't have been there.
Which is awesome from a like crazy things you could build inside this game.
So you
standpoint.
could do that.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't want to do that.
It doesn't quite make sense for something like a campaign.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing about Levelhead though is that if you play with if you're having difficulty with it in the campaign in particular, if you play with a friend, it's sort of like playing the old Super Mario for the Wii or the new one on the Switch, where the co-op experience is simultaneously more chaotic and fun, but also an easier experience because
sometimes
because both of you have to be dead at the same time.
Yeah, so that part makes it easier.
Yeah.
But
And you can
most
rest
other
each other.
things actually kind of make it harder.
But in our game, you don't actually smack into each other side to
That's
side.
true.
Which is the thing that in Mario basically kills you constantly.
Yeah.
And so if you're having trouble with the campaign, grab a buddy, go through it that way. And otherwise, you can spend a lot of time once you unlock the workshop. You also unlock the tower. The tower is where all the levels go to live once they've been cleared in the marketing department. And you can literally just pick your difficulty and then just go play the best stuff every day in there. Yeah. So it's an easy way.
We will be adjusting those over time because I think we may have.
Well, we just had to pick values.
Yeah.
We haven't seen actually what
for setting the difficulty rates.
for setting difficulty rate.
Yeah.
Because we actually haven't seen enough stuff yet.
Yeah. Right now, our highest difficulty tier is 1 in 100 or lower for the clear rate, meaning like for every 100 attempts that people make on this level, only one attempt is successful, right? But I'm pretty sure that there's already some levels that have like a 1 in 1,000 or lower.
They probably shouldn't be in the same category.
So maybe those are a whole other thing.
Yeah.
So we'll be kind of exploring and wiggling
again,
those
part of
things
the
around.
purpose of early access, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, difficulty is one of those things that we always want games to be challenging, but that means literally something completely different on an individual player basis. And there's no way as a dev to 100% meet that need on whatever you set the default as. But having some of these options where, either by playing with a friend or by playing in a certain part of the game that aspects of it become easier to manage, then that's a good way to kind of get at these things.
Yeah. Well, and there's actually this, I think the hard part about being a game designer in the sense of difficulty balancing is that the golden thing that you want is to make people feel proud of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And if something seems easily doable, then that fails. You can't feel that, right? So you always want to make something that is hard enough that the person thinks they can't do it, but then they manage to succeed because that's like where it feels the best, right?
But not so hard that the person gives up.
Right.
Yeah.
So they run into it and they're like,
there.
I don't think I can do this. And then they try it like 1 or 2 more times. And then they start to see like, oh, wait a minute. And then they can get over it. Right.
Yep.
But that requires you to actually create discomfort, create sort of like psychological pain so that people can feel better afterwards.
Yeah. And I can tell you, because we watch people stream during the alpha, and that's honestly one of the hardest things to watch as a designer is to watch people struggling. Knowing, because that is actually the purpose of the whole thing. Like you struggling through the process is what makes people get that intense, like sort of chest out, like sort of feel like once they finally beat a thing. But it is hard because the whole time any of us watch them, I'm always thinking like when I'm watching people play through the levels that we built, I'm just always thinking like, do I need to down tune this? Like, does it need to be easier here every single time? And then
because you want them to win, but you also want them to feel good.
Well, you don't want to see somebody be frustrated because that's bad.
It's hard to watch, basically. Yeah. And so,
and of course, every person's level of frustration is idiosyncratic. It's different things.
And especially in a puzzle platformer, right? Because sometimes there's a thing that you got to do that somebody doesn't realize, and so then they go. So then that person just like specifically just starts going and doing something very hard and probably actually impossible as like an alternate to the thing they have to, because they just don't realize what it is they have to do. And so watching that's the one that drives me nuts, because I'm like,
it's right there.
It's right there. You're just so close.
Yeah. But here's what I love about this is that all of our players will get to experience this firsthand because they're going to make their own levels of Polar Step, and then they'll have to like watch people Twitch stream them, and they'll be like, "Oh shit!" Like watch somebody else get frustrated with the thing that you made.
Well, speaking on that though, one of my favorite parts of Levelhead so far is actually even just with our Alpha Strike team that's been in place, we get to play the game in a way that we haven't been able to play any of our games before, which is that we get to actually be surprised by the content of the game.
Yeah, if you build everything yourself, and like you've beat it a million times, you know it.
And so, like, I hopped into the marketing department yesterday and played through a couple levels in there, and I was just like, "What is going on? This is incredible!" And like, I was learning things about how the game works because I don't build levels around exploits, of course, for players in the campaign.
Which is our current team only builds levels around exploits.
They're creeping out. It's like everyone's getting a PhD and getting on the edge of the knowledge field in Levelhead, right?
Well, actually, one of our testers made a level that he took one of the battles from Undertale. Okay,
have you played this one? I haven't played it yet.
I saw a video of it. I was just watching. I was like, one time I was watching, I was just like, how? So he made Undertale. They have a little, in the battles, they have a little like box, and then they have these little mini games that happen in the box. So basically what he did was he designed several different mini games that would happen to you in the same area, depending on the phases of this boss fight. And he did this because we have this little like item in the game that actually kind of looks like the face of one of the skeletons in Undertale. So he put that face on top of like a little body shaped thing. So it looked like you're fighting this enemy. He figured out how to create health bars using things like moving along paths. And then you have to defeat every time you pass through one of these mini games, and you like quote deal damage to the enemy. And on top of that, he used the Switch system plus our boom boxes to recreate the music of the boss fight.
Oh my god! So this is the sort of thing where it's like, what?
Yeah. And in my like tiny imagination, I was just like, it's gonna be really cool, and somebody just like remakes Super Mario levels. Yep. You know, like that was as far as my imagination
was. Rebuilding Undertale.
If people are gonna build other games,
yeah, but even stuff like one of our testers during the alpha made Fork Knife, which was a Fortnite quote unquote clone. I don't know, but where he made like a little using the whirly fire burners. Or
he made a shape of an airplane.
He made a shape of an airplane with propellers that you just fall out of into 100 enemies.
You kill all of them. I love that one. I opened it up. I just started giggling.
Yeah,
so it's so good.
And all the enemies are also like falling from the sky.
Yeah, but even the naming, because they using the name combobulator and coming up with that way of making it, because in the moment you get in there and you're in an airplane, then you immediately get it, you know? So it was very fun.
Yeah. So I'm
so excited.
Yeah. It's going to be, with Crashlands or any of our previous games, it was just, the game is what it is, and the players get what we give them. Now the players get to give us weird stuff. Yeah. It's a nice exchange now.
Well, Levelhead's also one of the rare games where I've actually been playing it at home on occasion just for fun.
Yeah. Because it'll surprise you.
Yeah, and I had an idea for a level the other day. It was just like a dumb thing that I would not put in the campaign.
Yeah, but now you can still go make it.
Yeah, like you get to juggle enemies. And so what I found out, because Seth and I were debugging something, and we were hitting an enemy from below with a package, which allows you to knock them up.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, what if you could build a level out of keeping a certain number of enemies up in the air?
So you gotta juggle them.
So you gotta juggle these enemies by hitting them with the package a shitload of times, and you gotta do it to like sort of a beat. And so I just made this really simple level where the first room just has one of them in it, and then the second room has two, and the last room has three, and you got to juggle both of the enemies or all three of the enemies simultaneously to be able to get out of the room. And I built it in like 40 minutes or so, figured it out, and published it, and told the community about it. It's just a fun thing. Like, it was so fun to just get in there and do.
It relieves a lot of the pressure, because the campaign still's under a lot of pressure. Because the thing has to be like bulletproof.
That's the other nice thing.
It has to be tuned well.
Yeah. For us as creators, like, we can actually go make these little toy levels. And it's fine.
Well, even I can go make stuff, because I just all I do is web tech. I'm not a game designer. I can't make a good level for the life of me, right? But now I can still go in and make something and share it with people.
And it's not going to hurt the game.
And I can't hurt the game with it.
It's great. I'm so excited.
It's awesome.
All right, next question comes from Dangpak Packawoo.
That's good.
Yeah. With Levelhead being your new game and Crashlands fading into the background, how does it make you feel? Is it hard to see something you worked so long on slowly fall out of the limelight?
Nope.
I think it's important to note that Crashlands rapidly fell out of the limelight.
Yeah, we were looking over our sort of like sales graphs and stuff from that game a couple days ago as we were prepping for launch, and it was like within a month.
It's still the case that like half of the revenue and players we've ever gotten from Crashlands were in the first month.
Yep.
Actually, no, I think players, we did some humble bundles. And at that point, we're getting like 30 cents per copy or something like that. So we're getting a lot more players at that time. But actually, a lot of them are accidental players. Like, they bought the bundle because like, there's this other game I know about. And then they end up with Crashlands like
basically for free. And then,
and then they just go resell it on G2A or something. So that was a huge spike right all at once, and then just real quiet.
Yeah. And Levelhead, we're hoping, is more of still a spike at launch, but then hopefully it just grows. That's what's supposed to happen in early access if you're doing your job right. So that's sort of the goal with that one. But I think it's actually I'm happy to finally have something else, because I think Crashlands was our first, what I would call like a legit, full Butterscotch experience sort of product that we got to make. And it's always it's been lonely, to be honest. I don't think it's so much of like it receding into the limelight so much as like Crashlands finally has a buddy.
Yeah.
That is like of a, Levelhead to me is it's a similar caliber. Or in Levelhead's case, like it's a better game than what we were able to make at the time with Crashlands, basically on every dimension for us as a dev team, as well as I think for the player experience. And so mainly I'm just excited about having 2 games out there that both of them are just really incredible and also in very different genres.
Yeah.
It's just kind of fun. So I'm not worried about it at all. I think it's actually probably going to help Crashlands in the long run.
Probably.
Yeah, people can go from Levelhead to Crashlands. Maybe not so much the other way.
Correct.
Crashlands is a lot more chill. It has lots of difficulty tiers, and you don't have to, be a ninja.
They're different kinds of experiences.
Yeah. So yeah, it may help out. All right, well, let's hit 2 more questions. Next one's from challosis. Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Speak of the devil.
We did right before this podcast started.
Yeah,
our little recorder box thing, you just wouldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we struggled with it for about 8 minutes, and then we're like, "What if we just unplugged it?" And then we did, and then it worked perfectly. So that's always
after we plugged it back in again.
That was the key, though. That's the thing that people often forget is
you don't just unplug it.
Yeah, it's a 2-step process.
Off, then on.
Yeah. You don't want to just turn it off. Mm-hmm. All right, next question comes from Zivix.
And final question, right?
Final question. And then we got to get to work.
Yep. And everybody else has to get to play in Levelhead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or hopefully you were just playing while you were listening to this episode.
Even better.
Yes. Well, we need an in-game player.
That'd be kind of fun.
Can we do that? I'm asking, but I'm the one who would have to do it. So
from the website, it's just downloading stuff, so that's easy.
Could you stream it?
Could you stream it in game?
It would be a pretty good sized download.
Yeah,
it's bigger than anything else we download.
Yeah,
because the levels. We were doing the math. The typical level is like 500 bytes or something like that.
Yeah.
So it would take several thousand levels, like 6,000 levels, to make an MP3 file or something like that, right?
Yeah. No. Because that'd be 500 megabytes, right?
It's 500 bytes.
Oh, it's 500 bytes. So
1,000 levels.
It's only 500 kilobytes.
500 kilobytes. Yeah. So the math works out. You need a lot of levels to make one podcast episode.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do that. Anyways, what was the question? Oh, do any of you have a favorite level archetype going into early access?
The only archetype I even know of is the package jump panic.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's a type of level that
is only spikes.
There's nothing to stand on. There's no terrain, and the only way to navigate it is to
take your terrain with you.
To use your package to jump off of.
Package jump.
And then it's called package jump panic because
every jump is a panic moment.
Yeah, you're basically just shooting sweat out of every pore that you have.
Yeah, there were some pretty wild ones that were made during the alpha. And one that I couldn't even get past the first. I could make the first jump, but it was set up so that even if you made the first jump, you immediately got stabbed if you didn't jump right away again.
Yeah,
and I couldn't get past that point. And I literally tried it 60 times.
Yeah.
Just
those levels
over.
They're fun, but I don't enjoy them, if that makes sense.
I like them conceptually.
Yeah. I like them as an idea.
I want like one every now and then.
That's what it is.
It's kind of like it's like spicy food, you know, like it's good to have some of it, but you don't want to really go overboard because now you're going to the hospital. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So my personal favorites are, I think, 2 sorts. So one is contraptions. Mm-hmm. So just when people build just weird things where, like this Undertale game, or we had someone build basically a pinball machine, where they take the mechanics that we've put into the game that we don't actually use in that way, literally at all. So none of the campaign levels make use of this stuff in that sort of way, and then do something surprising with it. I think it's great. And then the other one is actually sort of the more Metroidvania feeling ones.
Yeah.
And I like those most because they seem to me to be, it puts people for some reason in a better frame as far as how they're pacing their level. Where because it's about backtracking, it's about like exploring new things. It's slightly different.
It's less about trying to murder you.
And those levels, they take a lot of time to build.
Yeah, they take a long time to build. And so they are probably my favorite. Yeah, they're very thoughtful.
And there was one I remember playing that had like, I think 12 different switches in it that you had to like
you go climb
get to and basically get every single one of them flipped in the right orientation before you could finally get to the end, you know? But it was a lot of them. And so so you never quite know, but you need the right combination to get certain doors open to get to other ones and so on, you know? And so there were just so many switches happening. I was like, how did you keep track of this?
Well, this is my favorite because to me, those Metroidvania ones make levels that start feeling like small worlds.
Yeah.
Which is like the closest that people get to and that sort of thing. And I think those are awesome. my favorite by far.
I agree. Yeah, I like the ones where they just the creator just wants to like make a long and interesting kind of like series of puzzles or like nicely scaling challenges. I don't think there's like a specific archetype for that.
You just like well balanced things.
I like yeah, well, yeah,
coherent or cohesive.
Yeah, well, because what you'll oftentimes see is people building a level where it's just really hard and it never lets up.
Yeah,
you know, like it just never gives you a breather. It never gives you like one of the things you'll find in the campaign is we'll do stuff like give you a bunch of really hard stuff, and then you just get like a nice coin trail. You like run and pick up a bunch of coins. It's like good job, you know. And then you touch a checkpoint, and now you're kind of like reset for the next challenge. Yeah.
It's and like in Dark Souls or Sekiro, like you have to have your bonfire moment. If you're hitting the player with a ton of stuff, like you got to give them a bonfire moment where they can just sit down and like ooh sort of a thing, right? As opposed to just constantly hammering them with stuff.
So really just like levels that use rewards and strategic checkpoint placement are like, I don't even care what the type of level is. If you've got that, then like you could pretty much do anything.
Because you'll stick around at that point, right?
Yeah. So there's like all kinds of small things people will start to see. So things like if you give somebody a power up, the power up has a 1 second or like 0.7 second animation, which is, it looks cool. And if you experience it once on a level, you're like, yeah. But if you touch the power up and then the next thing you do is hit a checkpoint, then it's like, or sorry, if you touch checkpoint and then get the power up, then every time you die, you have to reacquire the power up, and you have to just like keep watching the animation.
Just as a pro tip, as far as how the campaign design uses checkpoints, they are either to lock in the fact that you just completed some incredible difficult thing, or to make sure you don't have to do something annoying again.
Yeah.
Sometimes it means in the campaign there's a few levels where you'll actually have checkpoints almost back to back. Where one is celebrating that fact, the next is sort of like you've got
getting it past an annoyance.
Yeah,
exactly.
but notably, something is generally not annoying the first time you do it.
Correct.
Well, actually, almost never.
Yeah.
Right. What's annoying is repeatedly doing it. Yeah. So when you're gonna publish a level, just like play through it a bunch of times and make sure that as you die at each checkpoint, that you're not having to like redo.
Oh, which reminds me of another pro tip, which is actually be kind of stingy about your checkpoint use.
Yes.
Because they save the current state. So it's not like Mario, where like when you hit a checkpoint, you're like, you're cool, you're in the middle of the level now. If you die, you're like back in the middle of the level. But if there were things that you did around that, those are also reset, right? In Levelhead, it's like literally anything you have done is now saved up to that moment in time that you hit that thing. And so if you go do more things before you hit the checkpoint, you don't have to do those things again after you die.
So when you say be stingy with checkpoint usage, not as a builder, but as a player.
As a player.
So like if you see a checkpoint, maybe don't necessarily hit it immediately.
Yeah. So that's one of those advanced tactics that you need to start using later on in the campaign.
Yeah, especially because they're like secrets and stuff that are annoying to get to, you know? And so you'll come up to a checkpoint and there's a secret nearby. And so you got to make this decision. Like, do I get the checkpoint and now be safe, not to do the last stuff I did? But now knowing that every time you die after this, you have to go get that secret again, or get the secret first, then get the checkpoint.
Yes. Or if you're a real badass, turn on speedrun mode,
which turns off all the checkpoints.
Yeah. Why would that be good? It's because when you die, you restart checkpoint.
Some people like pain. I don't know. Let's just
But the checkpoint keeps on adding time, right?
Yeah. When you reset at a checkpoint, it still counts the time you accrued during that attempt, right? So if you die a whole bunch of times, then your final time will be much, much slower, right?
Yep.
So presumably if you're a real legit speedrunner, any death at all is unacceptable and you should start the whole level over. So we just added a little checkbox for that so you don't have to worry about it.
Well, as we wrap up, I do want to thank both Sure, who handled all the localization for Levelhead. And we're in how many languages?
We've got 9 languages
9 total.
One of them is English.
Though, one of them is English, which technically was there by default.
That's true. So we did 8 extra ones. Yeah. And then also Sampara for handling operations and management stuff for the studio. It's been a really slick operation here these last couple months in the studio. And, those two as people also building the game with us.
Yep. And then our beta team.
Our beta team was fantastic, and the people who joined us for Alpha, as well as people who've been ongoing in the Alpha Strike team. We found a bunch of interesting edge case bugs that probably would have given us a heart attack on over the next couple of days that we got in early. So, thanks to everyone who has in some way kind of helped out with making this game possible.
And our moderators, of course, for helping keep the community in shape.
It's been a ride.
Yeah,
it's going to be a wilder one going forward.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, I think that's all the time we've got. So everybody have fun playing
Go
Levelhead.
Play some Levelhead.
And as we mentioned earlier, all the links to everything is over at bscotch.net or you can just go to podcast.bscotch.net. We've got everything.
It takes you to the same place, really.
Yeah.
You know?
And also thanks to Fat Bard and Jen Coster, the producers of our podcast, for putting this whole thing together and letting us talk to you guys. So thank you all very much, and we'll see you next week
In Levelhead. Goodbye.